Welcome to the Queen City Music Podcast, the podcast devoted to the local music scene in Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, here's your host, Matthew Adlin.
Hello and welcome to episode 38 of the Queen City Music Podcast. This month, I'm speaking with Teddy Johnson. He's the managing director of Middle C Jazz, which is located at 300 South Brevard Street in Uptown Charlotte. Middle C is reminiscent of the jazz clubs typically found in New York or Chicago, but with a bit of Southern hospitality thrown in. The club showcases an amazing mix of artists from a variety of jazz styles and offers those true jazz fans special offers through its Baby Grand Club. Teddy, how are you doing today?
I'm feeling wonderful. Wonderful, thanks.
Well, thanks for taking time out this evening and coming on the podcast. I wish we could have did it in person, but once again, I am doing another Skype interview or Zoom interview, as it were.
Oh, it's cool. No worries.
So, Teddy, fill us in. Are you originally from the Charlotte area?
No, actually, I'm from a little beach town called Long Beach in New York, and lived there for somewhere about 30 years, and then moved to Florida, actually, for many years, and that's where my kids were born, and moved here to Charlotte in 2007.
Well, you're the managing director over at Middle C Jazz Club uptown. Do you have a musical background?
I do, actually. Very, very fortunate. I was raised in a house where we just were brimming with music. My mom was a music therapist and a piano teacher, so we had students and people with special needs all the time in and out of the house, helping them either teach them or through music therapy. And then I learned the drums and guitar as a boy and have played now for decades. I've been in just some minor bands, have had some opportunities to play with some famous musicians out in California. So I'm definitely 50% drums, 50% guitar, something like that.
You going to do some name dropping of some of the folks that you played with?
Well, if you're insisting, sure. I've got to play with members of the Foo Fighters, members of Van Halen, which was really members of Kiss. It was just, wonderful experiences all the way around. And you do it once or twice, and after a while, it's like, oh, they're just one of the boys,
That's great. That's great.
So you've got this music background, but now you're the managing director at a jazz club. So how did the two intersect? Do you have a business background? Do you have a restaurant background? What is your background to get involved?
Funny you ask that, because it's a left-right brain, I always used to call it, and depending on the situation, which side takes over. So yes, when I graduated from college up in New York, I did go into Wall Street, believe it or not, and was there just for a few months and really hated it, and went back to college and ended up getting a degree in hospitality. So that kind of led me into the hotel restaurant career, which led me into special events, and that's how I started to meet and produce lots of music events, especially. And one of the greatest positions I held was a director of special events for the Florida Grand Opera. And that gave me a total exposure to production, acousticians, just at a whole nother level. So I think taking that production, wanting to know what the big reveal is going to be like when you do an event, a passion for music. Like I mentioned, I came from a family that had all sorts of music in the house, from Gene Krupa and Billy Cobham all the way up to the Led Zeppelin and back to jazz and opera again. So it was a real diverse background, and I think that kind of pumped me up to be ready for the opportunity that I found myself in now.
So when you were in Florida working for the opera, how did that? Do you have a couple other steps in between to moving into Middle C, or were there or did you go directly into Middle C?
Well, my family, when we moved up here, I was still in event management, and actually I was working for Bank of America. I was an operations director for national events for them for several years, and again, always in the event business somehow. And many of the events in that part can be very corporate, conferences, but there's always the nighttime parties and festivities that take place, and you have to be able to flex and I think go from one end to the other. So I found myself in those in that area. And then after the Great Recession started, I found myself needing to learn to connect with different types of organizations in town. And I was able to get to know, I think, more on a local basis who some of the great leaders were in town when it comes to events and music. And one of those leaders in our town right here is Larry Farber. Who, along with Adam Farber and a great team of investors, are the founding members of Middle C Jazz.
So before we get into Middle C, I'm just curious, as an events coordinator, what's involved in that?
Well, it's interesting. You can see it and define it in many ways. I progressed entering more on the logistical side, which is, I always used to think of it as carrying around, pens and papers and checking off boxes and everything that you have to do at the time. But then as I progressed in the industry, it was more about production and ideation, and how to convey a certain message that the event, the people who are paying you, what they want to convey. And sometimes it's celebration, but it's also about teamwork. So that end of my business led me into run events for MetLife, Mass Mutual Insurance, doing all sorts of events and producing for them, working directly with audiovisual companies. That actually led me to a contract with a local audiovisual company called EventsCom, fantastic company here in Matthews and Charlotte, and also learning more about the equipment and how the equipment interfaces and how the presentations and content are so important. So there are all these different facets in events, whether it's the food and beverage or the content that you're looking at a big screen, obviously entertainment. But the most important thing I always say is that the most important part about an event is that the next day the people that attended that event should feel like they were part of something special, that they learned something and that they were part of a group that was part of something amazing, whether it was about learning, team building, or just celebrating, that they were glad to be there. That's the most important part about it.
So in the events business that you were in or still are in, have you done all different aspects of it so that you are well-rounded in it, or have you been primarily in one area of the events coordination?
I would say virtually I probably have stepped into every part of it. I've done events at stadiums. I've done events in opera houses. I've done events in hotels, of course, in tents, on cruise ships. Virtually I've touched about every box. I'm sure there's something out there I haven't done. Events, I don't want to sound like I've done everything, right. But I've done a lot and feel very grateful that I've been able to work with some wonderful organizations and wonderful companies. I think because of that, the attraction to me right now in Charlotte with Middle C Jazz is just a great combination of bringing all of that together.
Well, that brings me to my next question. How did you get involved in getting into Middle C? So you've got the shot, you're working, bringing it back. So how did you get involved with those folks? I know you met Larry, but how did you get into touch with him?
Actually, I hadn't actually physically met Larry. I knew of him, and some of the same circles and some of the same people, and that's really what it is. And it always comes down to it's who you know, not what you know, and that is definitely true. I was able to finally meet Larry through a mutual friend, and he referred me to the president at that time, the opening general manager. And I went down there and we spoke for a while, and they gave me some opportunity to be in charge of their private membership program. And I took charge of that, and that led me to be advanced to the managing director.
So you worked your way up.
I worked my way up. I always joke with Larry and Adam about it, because I say, the first day I was here, I think I was in the back building shelves, and they said, yeah, we were testing you.
That's great. Wow, they put the task in front of you, you attacked it, and then it just showed your tenacity for the job, I guess, right?
That's a great way of saying it. I'll remember that.
So in your conversations as you're coming up as a managing director, how did you ever talk to them about or find out what the attraction was to them about opening a jazz club in Charlotte?
Sure, and absolutely. The attraction to me, what I could see, is that Larry and Adams and their investors' passion and their vision. They were on a true mission. We're on a mission, and they wanted to bring and have brought great jazz music plus an incredible versatile space we have there. I have to plug, we can do and will do private events when allowed. And it's a very intimate approach that they designed. I think Larry and Adam and the investors, they studied the products, they studied different jazz clubs, different cities in DC, in New York City, in Charleston, and wanted to make something here in town that just wasn't a venue that was putting music or sound in, but wanted to make an experience that was intimate, that touched people, that created and evoked emotion. And that's how it is. When I speak to people at the club, I'm there often, of course, and they always say to me, thank you for being part of a great team, and thank the Farbers for opening up this incredible club. Because we've created jointly an experience that you can't get anywhere else.
So, since you opened this box, I'm gonna jump in with you a little bit. It takes me off of where I wanted to go, but that's okay by me. What's the experience like? Because I used to live in New York and not New York City, but Long Island, and I would go in, and I've been to a few jazz clubs in New York, and I've been to different clubs in Chicago. So in New York, if anyone who's listening and hasn't been to a jazz club in New York, the way it's set up, most of the time that I've been to jazz clubs, you go in, you see a 45-minute show. Normally, it's a pretty small place for a lot of the places. You'd be surprised how small they are. You go in, you sit down, you grab a table, or you stand by the standing room only. You watch a 45-minute show or listen to a 45-minute show, and then you're ushered out. And then the next show starts. So they'll have maybe 2-3 shows a day, possibly more depending on the group. What's the experience like at Middle C? Can you fill us in how you run things there?
Sure. So I think there's a similarity in the sense that depending on the night of the week, we will do 2 shows. However, we're not about ushering in and ushering out in the same vein. We really get to know the people that are coming to Middle C Jazz. It's a very modern place. The amount of money that was spent on just the sound quality in the room, the acousticians that we used, it's incredible. So it's very much an experience that's similar, I think, to a small theater in that sense, except you have a lower ceiling, and you have these beautiful cocktail tables with servers coming to bring you menus for small plates and craft cocktails. There are multi-screens in the room, and it's just a much more personal experience. I've been to the clubs in the city, as we have that in common, and in Manhattan specifically. And yes, that getting him out kind of mentality, it's different. We do need to rotate shows, but it's not done in that very, conveyor belt feel at all. We really do take our patrons to be the most important part of what we do, and we want their experience to be seamless.
And how long are each of the performances that the artists give?
I would say about 75 to 90 minutes.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a long show.
75 is at the minimum, and then often they'll do an encore. And we get the greatest musicians. We get people that are local and national and regional. And if the time will allow it, based on the show and the structure of the night, they'll play for a longer amount of time. I mean, it's not often that we don't get an encore for a band to come out for another 5 or 10 minutes, for sure.
That was you jumped in with the question I was gonna ask, or the answer. What kind of groups do you hire? So you hire local, regional, and national acts. What's the hiring process like? Do you have tons of jazz? Because I'd imagine you might get inquiries from jazz groups all the time, or jazz artists trying to play.
Sure. Well, as far as I'll speak to programming. So, programming, Larry Farber, who was one of the main forces in East Coast entertainment, been there for 47 years, of course. He also opened Music with Friends 15 years ago, which brings well-known name entertainment into small venues as a private club. And he and his son came up with I guess certain budgets when first opened, and we were able to get some national known players in, like Steve Tyrell and Cy Smith, who were just great nationally known acts that have come in, and then also working with another member of their family, Reed Farber, who works with Larry on programming, and sometimes they let me listen and get in on the programming conversations, but they do a great job. And, we really want to help the talent. So, we can have a regional act that's going to come in, as we did with Noel Friedline and Maria Howell most recently for our anniversary, and also get local groups like Fifth in York, who played locally for a long time here uptown. So we want to be able to bring different varieties and different genres within the jazz label, if you will. But, within that, you've got rhythm and soul, you've got standard jazz, you've got bebop. This weekend coming up, we've got Gino Castillo and his group are doing a great tribute to Latin jazz. It's very diversified.
So you guys are not per se limited to, we only hire bebop groups. You hire a wide range of jazz.
Very much wide range. I mean, as I was mentioning before, some of the names, but you can hear one night you might hear people singing standards from Sinatra and Bennett and Ella Fitzgerald, and the next night you might hear Miles Davis and Oscar Peterson, and the next night you might hear El Gran Combo. It's just a great variety of music that we're able to offer the Charlotte region.
Wonderful. So the next question I've got for you, you guys have been open about a year. Do I have that correct?
We just celebrated our 1-year anniversary. We celebrated it this past week. Technically, it was the first weekend in November, but we made it happen this week in November 19th, 20th, 21st, because we were able to align that with the musical talent that we just talked about. They did an amazing job. We had sold out shows Thursday, 2 on Friday, and 2 on Saturday. Yeah, it was beautiful.
You guys were open about 5 months before COVID hit. How did that affect you guys? Did you guys close up for a short period of time? How did that affect you guys being a new business?
Sure. I think like all the other businesses, this was something we had to learn quickly. And if we were going to make any mistakes, want to make them quickly. So we did close for I think 6-7 weeks, like everybody else. Then we were able to open I think it was the last couple of days of May, beginning of June. And we were learning as we were going along. However, we wanted to make sure that we observed all of the policies that the governor and the state of North Carolina has put forward. So all of our tables are 6 feet separated. You have to have a mask when you come in. Now, of course, you have to have a mask when you're sitting, except when you're dining or drinking. All of the employees always wear a mask. Temperatures are taken before anybody is allowed into the building. We scan them, and we actually have this, I call it the Jedi wand thing, the lightsaber, and you make sure there's no cooties on them, as we say when they walk in. But it's something that we are embracing, and it has caused us to think more how to bring more opportunity and be creative with our marketing. So we cultivated a real community with our baby brand members. The membership is fantastic. It's been thriving, actually doing better. We have close to 600 members now. So it's a club within a club.
So Teddy, hold on a second. You jumped into there, and I know a little bit about the Baby Grand Club because we've talked about it. Tell everybody what it is. What is the Baby Grand Club that's part of Middle C?
So Larry and Adam, when we first opened, developed the Baby Grand Member Club, and what that gives you for $300, it gives you 20% discounts on all tickets. It automatically gives you 4 $20 vouchers, totaling $80 back immediately that you can use for the purchase of tickets. It provides you with early notice of all of our shows, which is very important because a lot of those shows get sold out quickly. We also give you preferred seating, which is wonderful. So you get to pick a seat where you want it, and we do our best to make sure you have that seat when you arrive, which is wonderful. You get free parking, which is great. Right above, we have a great parking deck right above the club. We also give you a very good discount at the Embassy Suites Hotel, which is only a few years old, that opened up across the street from us. And once COVID is over, we will return to doing our private Baby Grand member events that are free. So you get to hear free music and have a cocktail and an hors d'oeuvre, come in and meet your other Baby Grand associates. and you get a personal concierge, which is great. So it is really quite the thing, and we've been selling them so quickly. And as a way of saying thank you to our community, this past weekend we gave 2 years for the price of one.
Wow.
And it was the demand was just off the chart. So that was wonderful. So it's a great club, and it's a great way of getting to know our members and our audience even better.
Is there a limited number of people that you have in the Baby Grand Club?
Well, we're getting there. It's getting close.
Okay.
It's getting close. Our numbers, are a little bit out of kilter because of COVID, so we have to see when we reopen. Right now, we're operating at less than 50% capacity in our club to make sure that we can observe the 6 feet of separation and space that the governor requires.
Okay. And with the Baby Grand Club, you said you were offering, instead of a 1-year membership, it's a 2-year membership for the same price. Is that still available for anybody who might be listening?
No, it's not. No. And I see you trying to get one for you. But no, we have to go back because we know that a year from now we're gonna look to have new members join again.
Awesome. That's fantastic. All right. So you guys have been open about a year. You said you had some celebratory things happening recently. Are you going to be doing some more celebrations during the course of the year?
For the balance of the year, it's obviously it's the holiday season that everybody always loves when it arrives. And one of the things that we're concerned right now, and that as a priority, is giving back. So
Okay.
we've been taking our role and trying to get more aggressive as we can. And so with this weekend coming up, we have a live stream service, which we have at the club, which I'll tell you about. And we have Gino Castillo and this wonderful Latin jazz band, which is just off the chart. And where all of the proceeds from the live streaming portions, all right, a major portion of it is going to the foundation that helps and brings medical supplies to children in developing areas around the world. And this one is actually going to concentrate for Ecuador.
Wow.
So we're working with the charity, and we would love for people to tune in at either 7:15 or 9 p.m. on, 7 or 9:15 p.m. on Saturday night, November 28th. Because if you do, you go to our website, you'll see the live streaming, and know that the money for the live streaming is being shared with an incredible organization that is bringing desperately needed medical services to all around the world. And in this case, it happens to be in Ecuador.
So the live streaming of shows, this is something that new that you guys are developing. Is it something you're going to do consistently for the future, or is it just a special event kind of thing?
Well, I'm glad you asked. In the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to announce, because we've been doing live streaming on Saturday night since June. One of the great ideas that Larry and Adam had was to immediately put cameras in and start live streaming. So we started in baby steps, and now we're getting bigger steps. And we're going to have Middle C on demand. You've heard it first right here. We hope to start that by mid-December. It's going to have an instant library of about 50 different concerts that we've had over at Middle C. Every Saturday night, there'll be a new one added at a minimum. It's going to be $9.99 a month. The first 30 days will be free. I'm learning all this by Netflix, by the way. It's a baptism by fire. But people will sign up, and they'll be charged $9.99 a month, and you can watch as many videos as you want. It's going to be great. Yeah.
Yeah, you could go the route of Disney instead of monthly, and Disney just says, "Okay, we're paying you, charging you for the whole year in one flat smack."
Yeah, that'll be my next lesson.
And just because I'm curious, we still have the Baby Grand Club fresh on the mind. Is this something that is this a service that the Baby Grand members automatically get being a member, or is that something extra for them?
No, that'll be extra. That'll be
Okay.
Extra.
All right.
So if you want to put in the sense of numbers, it'll be $309.99.
That's
for the Baby
fantastic.
Grand membership, yeah.
So here's a kind of off the wall kind of question, something we haven't really discussed, but when we're talking about Middle C Jazz Club, how do you see how the club fits into the Charlotte music scene? How do you guys envision that?
Well, I think it complements the scene, and I think it's also something that the other venues can strive to try to learn from some of the things that we're doing, because one of the things I found in going to some of the other locations is that we don't feel the personal service. It's kind of like you had implied about up in the north, let's say, where it's kind of ushered in and ushered out.
Right.
We want the opposite of that. We see ourselves as being the I want to say this carefully, but being the Supreme Jazz Club, but with a Southern hospitality feel.
Gotcha.
It's very, very important, and that really is something that emulates and comes from ownership. The Farber family and the investors really want personal service. I mean, they're heavily involved in things that we do in a great way. Their passion, it goes downhill through and penetrates all of the people that work at Middle C Jazz. So we want to be that club where you can come in and feel comfortable wearing a jacket and tie, but you're going to be given incredible hospitality and made to feel welcome.
You mentioned it. Is there a dress code at Middle C?
I'm glad you brought that up, because actually we want people to feel comfortable. We want them to feel that they're in a place that they can express themselves like jazz is. But we do also want to let people know that we expect it to be a neat kind of dress and to be something to be proud of. And that's, I guess, very, very, people can look at that and define it in different ways. But I think most people come in on a Saturday night. Most gentlemen come in with collared shirts and wearing nice slacks. Ladies look very nice. There's no requirement. No one's going to say you can't come in. But I think people do take the opportunity to feel good about the way they dress when they walk in there, and they put some thought into it.
So you're trying to be a little more upscale, I guess would be a great way to put it.
But an upscale, but in a friendly, not in an arrogant way.
Right.
We definitely, I've seen people there in shorts plenty of times, especially in the warmer months, and that's something. It's a personal decision.
Right.
As long as your ears are ready for a great experience and open to great hospitality, that's what we want you to have.
That's awesome, man. So when I'm looking back and I'm taking all this in that you're telling me about the club, do you think that the Farbers were thinking about filling a hole that they saw in the music community here in Charlotte? Because I've been in the city about 15 years, and I don't believe there was a dedicated jazz club in that time or even before I got here.
To answer your question about a void, yes, I think that there's definitely was a definite desire to fill a void and bring something where there was none. To steal the phrase from Field of Dreams, build it and they will come. And I think that's the attitude. That's the attitude. Let's build something that hasn't existed before. There was a jazz club back in the 90s in Charlotte. That was the last time there was one, officially dedicated to it. There have been restaurants that'll occasionally bring in a jazz duo or jazz trio. At those places, it's about the food and it's about the beverage. At Middle C Jazz, it's about the music and about the experience. And we also happen to have some tasty plates. That's on the side.
Now that you mentioned it, I'm really curious. Is it, again, going back to northern jazz clubs, do you have a smaller limited menu? And this is specific items that you can get, like let's say there's 10 items on the menu, you can pick and choose from them, or is it more like a regular restaurant where you have like a ton of items and pays?
It's more of an intimate sized menu. That's because we want to be able to concentrate on the music more.
Yep.
We don't expect there people to coming out with rack of lamb and something like that. But we do have a variety of great flatbreads, which is very, very nice. Shrimp cocktail. You can get a charcuterie plate. There's some nicely freshly baked desserts that are served there. So you can, depending on your perspective, you can make a dinner from it, but it's not a 3-course dinner. And these are small plates that are served at the table on a cocktail-sized table. So we have to take that into consideration too.
And how many people, when we're not in a COVID situation, how many people does the jazz club normally hold?
Well, there's the fire code and there's what we fit, and there's always these 3 answers. But the first answer is we were seating when we had sold out shows about 165 to 175 inside the club. Right now, we're limiting that to 75 people.
Okay. And unfortunately, I haven't gotten a chance to come down to the club yet myself. How is the seating? When you're sitting, is every spot you sit in, is that a good spot, that you can hear well and see? Because I know you talked about it being a really wonderfully acoustically sounding room.
Honestly, and one of the great feats of an acoustician is to do their best to make sure there's no bad spot in the room to listen to the music.
Right.
And I honestly have to say that is true. I mean, you might get a little more drums on one end and a little more piano on the other. But I would say there is no bad seat in Middle C Jazz to listen to the music.
Wow. Fantastic, man. I'm dying to get down there. I've got to try to catch one of the shows soon.
I think if you leave now, you can make it by Friday.
Unfortunately, I'm playing on Friday and Saturday this week. It's a busy week for me. But I definitely have got to get down. I think sad to say, I think because of COVID, the winter might be slowing down a lot of performances for local musicians in smaller places. I hope, you guys are thriving during the winter. So
we have all Fridays and Saturdays outside of any holidays, perhaps booked, I think we're doing about 60 to 75 days out. Many Thursdays. We're going to be great Thursdays. We're having local musicians come in on Thursdays. Rodney Shelton is going to be there, bringing in different players on Thursday nights for coming in December. We are actually very excited about the lineup we have.
So before I forget, how many days a week are you guys open?
Right now, our featured programming is on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. We're doing gospel Sundays, I think, every other week.
Okay.
And depending on how things roll out, we have a couple of ideas that we're going to bring in probably into middle January. I wouldn't want to put them on the radio yet because I want to make sure they're going to happen, but we do have some programming ideas that we hopefully will go through and start in mid-January.
Sure. Wow. Teddy, as we start to close things out, is there anything that I'm missing? Anything we haven't discussed about Middle C? I think we covered a lot.
Well, let's see. Middle C is located on South Brevard Street, right across from the convention center.
Here we go. There we go.
South Brevard Street. That's important. We hope that we can bring in more people that feel comfortable. We respect people that don't want to go out right now. We do want people to know that we are taking and follow all precautions that are and guidelines that are required from the state. And we've had some very, very happy people thank us for being open right now. We are the experience to see, and we hope that you'll join us soon.
Wow. What's the website for Middle C before I forget?
MiddleCjazz.com.
Fantastic. Can we buy tickets there for shows, or is that something we got to call in? How does that work?
We have the calendar tab on the website. You can buy your tickets right through there. And if you need help buying the tickets, you go on the website. You can contact us through there, and we'll call you back.
Man. Thanks, Teddy. Thank you for coming on today and filling us all in about Middle C. You're just a fantastic guest.
Thank you for inviting us and taking the time, and thank you for doing what you do as well. That's very important for what you do for the music community.
Oh, I'm happy to shed a light on what's happening here in the town. So it's a labor of love. And that will bring episode 38 of the Queen City Music Podcast to a close. If you have an idea for an episode or would like to be a guest on the QCMP, reach out to me at qcmusicpodcast@gmail.com. Also, please check out our partner, Records on the Wall, at rexonthewall.com. Until next month, get out there and support your local music scene by going to hear some of the talented musicians that call the city of Charlotte home. Be well and stay safe.